Hello, welcome back to the Aurora Life channel, and today I have a very special treat for you. My name is Stuart Tan, and I'm the person who will lead you through this entire episode called The Hero's Journey. Now, the hero's journey is not a new concept. In fact, it's been used by movie directors for decades, ever since the landmark book written by mythologist Joseph Campbell that came out a long time ago in the 1980s that highlighted different elements of how characters are developed in myth. So when you take a look at Oedipus, when you take a look at Electra, you take a look at various different characters, such as Achilles in Greek mythology, you begin to realize that heroism is not just confined to any particular type of individual. In fact, there are many different kinds of heroes that go through three distinct phases in their life, starting off from the current world, moving out of that comfort zone into a world that's unfamiliar and unknown, and then moving back, having learned certain lessons, into a new view of what used to be the old world. Now, these three phases are marked by distinct elements, and I'd like you to use this as an analogy for your life. For example, when you were called to do something, perhaps you were mischievous and you decided that, you just make fun of that particular classmate of yours. And what happened? Perhaps you ended up in the principal's office and you had a nice spanking or whatever it might be. I'm not sure whether that's allowed in any country these days. But when you think about it, those events may have been critical in helping you to shape your cognitions and your belief systems about the world. And as a result, when you return back to the classroom, you may literally have been transformed. And sometimes, unfortunately, this transformation doesn't take place within the span of 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It happens throughout thematic challenges through your lifetime. For instance, someone may have had that mischief in them, gone in, created a ruckus, maybe nearly decimated somebody's livelihood, and then had to get punished and disciplined, come out of it and feel very limited, feel very embarrassed or ashamed. Unfortunately, that may be carried forward into a new part or a new phase of their life. If they don't learn anything from that, they may end up going and creating mischief elsewhere on a bigger scale. And this is where demons appear. And this is where mentors or mentor figures, coaches, and people who are companions on that journey will come together to help to support you in order to get past these demons or monsters. Now, of course, I'm speaking metaphorically. You're not going to get a phone call, a literal phone call, that tells you to go out there and fight a monster. There is no such thing. The monsters are all deep and buried within. Sometimes we have not the courage to confront them, and as a result, life brings us on this merry-go-round roller coaster ride that forces us to have to reflect upon these difficulties that happen to us. So in that mischief, perhaps you get into this state of shame, and as a result, you get angry, frustrated. You go out and attempt to take revenge on the world. But guess what? The more you attempt to do that, the more you get a kickback of negativity, and people tend to look down upon you even further, and as a result you reach a rock bottom to a point where you perhaps desire to change everything about yourself. So this is a series or a sequence that sometimes happens for different people. Take a look, for example, at The Lord of the Rings. Frodo Baggins goes through these three phases. Starts off in Hobbiton, and then moves out, goes into this massively scary adventure that's outside of his comfort zone, meets his heroic friends and his companions. They go on this journey together. They get injured, they suffer death and loss, but at the same time they learn new things about themselves and they rise above themselves, so that when they return back to the place where they first came from, it is not the same place. It is evolved and it is elevated. So this is what happens. Think of another journey, the journey of being treated in a way which was being a victim, for example, like the story of Cinderella, being an innocent victim within a household and yet being open to this amazing, fantastic journey, this magical encounter with the fairy godmother, with the prince, and then having to go back by midnight, right? And at the end of the day, the Prince Charming appears and then happens to fit in the right shoe of the right size, and then everything happens happily ever after. It is a hero's journey of rising above herself from a mythological standpoint. Likewise, if you take a look at something even more recent written by Alexandre Dumas about the Count of Monte Cristo, a person who was victimized by his friend and eventually decided to take revenge by becoming a completely different person, the Count of Monte Cristo, having discovered a good friend in prison, discovering riches beyond his imaginings, and then was able to come out and put on this new persona that could intimidate and give him whatever it is that he wanted. At the end of the day, he relented and he began to learn new things about himself beyond just vengeance. So all of these are coming full circle about knowing that you have been hurt before and coming full circle thinking that revenge was your main outcome, but eventually leading to forgiveness. Perhaps you thought that it was about peace and enjoyment and fun, but then you go one full circle encountering everything that is not fun and coming to appreciate what true companionship is all about. Now that is about coming full circle, and that is a very powerful concept. As you think about the journey that you have taken, what has happened? What calls have you received? And remember, every single time you are asked to go into a different comfort zone, there are different learnings. Some of them are tragic, some of them are heroic, but in combination, you learn something new about yourself. So what I'd like you to do is to begin to do some reflection. And this reflection is simple. Take out a sheet of paper, write down the entire history of your life. The longer it is, the longer you're likely to need to take to reflect. Chart the ups and downs on that timeline of your life and begin to identify thematic variances in your life. You might be shocked to discover that all of the lows and all of the highs may be linked together by a single cluster of themes. In my personal life, it was centered around achievement as well as relationships. It was centered around coming out of a shell compared with being able to shrink back and knowing when to do those things. So if you think about your own personal themes in life, what are they? Do they actually reflect what your life is all about? Do they actually help you to gain a sense of self-awareness and ground you in the awareness of who you are and what you're capable of? So go ahead and do this exercise, and I will see you in the next video. So, did you learn anything from that video? If you did, just give it a thumbs up and then click on the subscribe button and hit the notifications icon so that you and I will continue to stay in touch and I can provide you with updates whenever we have new videos.